Kyle here from All Media Reviews. Small League Sink Ships Day, sort of, the release of their new album, Low Tide, which will probably go here in post-production of this video. So, October 20th. Have made the videos all week for their, they're not a band that's got a massive catalog. They've been around, probably not around the same amount of time as King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, and they're, but... so this album, Low Tide, as I alluded to at least once or twice, when you pre-ordered it, you were actually able to get a download and stream it on BANDCAMP, on the BANDCAMP page. So I've been listening to it for about a week. Yeah, it was a little less than a week. I can't remember when I got it. It was about a week ago, I think the pre-order started, or a little over a week, but anyway, the vinyl is shipping. It should be next week. I'll show that. So, but, alright, so getting into it. I mean, I'm a fanboy, that's certainly it. I've been, like Pepe Deluxe, it reminds me a little of Pepe Deluxe from a couple years ago. The wait was longer with that record. Ever since, you could say ever since Remove Your Sandals or even Golden Cat, I mean, I've been waiting to see what they would do next, but I don't want them to rush. An artist needs to make the art at the pace that they need to make it. You don't want to, sometimes music is rushed and then it doesn't come out as good as the artist wants it. So they spent, at least 5+ years, maybe longer. I mean, if you think about basically from the end of Polaroid People or even before that on this record, Low Tide, and I think it really shows. I think that they probably spent a lot of time refining these songs and rearranging them and stuff like that. I mean, going over, it's 10 tracks, 42 minutes, and 43 seconds, and does include their cover of what wasn't originally by Cyndi Lauper. Of course, everyone knows Cyndi Lauper's song, Girls Just Want to Have Fun. It's a very different arrangement, but it really works. It fits in the Small League Sink Ship style. Very kind of taking the melodies and the different lines on that song and twisting them and taking them in a different tempo and everything with different instrumentation, different vocal arrangements. And I like that. The first single, AEIOU, is a fun wordplay. I mean, Small League Sink Ships, they're very different, very avant-garde in their approach to vocals, but their vocals are still melodic. It's weird how that works. But they use the vocals like Yes and a lot of bands more as how they sound as opposed to what are they saying. Although that song less so. I mean, that's literally like going over the vowels of the alphabet and, asking questions about them. A lot of the lyrics on this album still have some poetic meaning to them. It's not just a bunch of gibberish. But, I think the third single, they released those two songs initially, and then they released the third single about, it was like 3 weeks ago, it was like early October. Floating. I think Floating is an absolute banger. It's one of the best tracks they've written. It's just so playful and upbeat. The way they use the synths as a bed, and it goes into this sort of odd time-changing rhythm about, it's like 3 minutes into it or something like that. It's very progressive, Yeah, is it jungle-like? Is it tribal-like, like Bruce Peninsula or Local Native? Sometimes I hear those elements. Small League Sink Ships' approach to vocals and melodic lines kind of involve that. A lot of percussion, a lot of, like texture play and rhythmic play and how it sounds, how it reflects texturally in the atmosphere, and but it doesn't go on too long. It doesn't get boring to me. Some people might find it a little boring, but I personally don't. I think it totally flows and works well. So those are the first 3 tracks that they gave, they put up online, over the last month and change. It's like 2 months. The first song I think came out it was like late July, early August. AEIOU, I think it was August. But so then I hadn't heard the rest of the record, the other 7 songs, until just about 4 or 5 days ago. And I'm marveled how much every one of these tracks has something I don't expect to happen that happens that I love. If I'm going to point at favorites, the last couple, like the last day and a half, I would say My Piano and Buying Time, the last two tracks are. The last Buying Time is so sort of majestic and sort of in the ending of a story or a movie or it totally fits. So talking about buying time, like how much time do you have left? We're buying time. Don't rush yourself, you know. Although it's kind of a little bit, you know, thematic about what's gone on since you think about the last 5 years. Of course, what's happened since the pandemic. Everyone's questioning their mortality, questioning life as we know it, questioning life in North America and in America especially, and just as an artist to be able to make a living, to survive, etc. But My Piano, just the more times I hear it, that track, Slow Down, My Brother's Father, and Waiting on Water, all of them, it's like the second half of them go into these crazy sections, these great kind of upbeat, rhythmic, energetic sections. I'll say that the song Slow Down is like super technical. That's like a drummer's like. I'm not saying they're playing like polyrhythms of the sorts that you get from like Dave Weckl or something like that, but or Gavin Harrison, or you name the drummer who's doing these really technical paradiddles that just I don't know if how many overdubs they use it when London recorded that and wrote that, but that song is just super busy. I mean, it doesn't overwhelm it, but a lot of these songs, when those drum parts come in and they're just so they're offbeat, they're staccatos. It's almost like a lead drum part, a lead percussion part. That's the biggest one. The song "Slow Down," ironically, of the title. But the same thing happens on "Waiting on Water," on "Floating." On like most of the tracks on this, they have these drum parts. The second time I listened to this record, I was kind of backing off on it a little bit because I couldn't believe it's like they're using. I don't think any of the other Small League Steamship songs or albums have songs that fully get really that busy, you know, from a drum standpoint. And I almost found that, like, when I sometimes hear prog music that gets to be too much. I mean, I love technical music, but sometimes it's like that's all it's all about. And I was kind of fearing like it's like, well, they're basically becoming a drum band, and it's just let's see how fast we can play. But, you know, having gone through it again, I think it's sort of a happy balance. I mean, like, Steven Wilson's new album has some of that, too, where it's like, well, here's the fantastic, complex musicianship, and that's what this is about. It's sound design as opposed to melodic sense or songs. Small League Ships definitely took a step further into being, like, in terms of the musicianship, the drums specifically on this record. Now, I mean, again, are we talking about, you know, Portnoy, you name your sort of super technical drummers, you know, Billy Cobham, you know, Paul Wertigo, or some of the other guys that auditioned for the Dream Theater spot back in 2011 that I'm not even remember, 2010, besides Mangini, they're just unbelievable technicians. I was getting that impression to an extent, like, I was like, no, this is a drum album, but it's happy when you can combine musicianship with melody, or even in this case, it's more like atmosphere, texture, and the songs don't go too far off. I mean, I think even compared to, say, Face Yourself and Remove Your Sandals, the songs are all sort of very, they stay together. They're, you know, I mean, I like longer tracks a lot. I'm definitely someone who appreciates the long epics, the mid-set length epics, but I also can appreciate when you can do a lot of stuff in a short amount of time, a relatively short amount of time. I mean, the songs here range from 2 minutes and 36 seconds to 5 minutes and 26 seconds. So there's nothing really that long. I mean, the 5 minutes is pretty long for like a radio single or a single for a lot of people, but most of the songs are between around 3 to 4 minutes range, and they have a ton of stuff they put in there. Like Kiss Kiss did that. A lot of bands I love, the art rock stuff, are able to include tons of tracks and layers, but still have the song sort of work and not go on too long. I imagine playing some of this stuff live, they might extend them out, which is totally makes sense, and I'm a fan of, I totally enjoy, but, you know, I think from a production standpoint, from a vocal standpoint, you know, everything's more polished on this record. This record sounds better than any of the other records. I mean, it's sort of like piggybacking a little bit on Polaroid People's production, Although I was talking about yesterday with the Polaroid People EP, how were they going to do next? It was so electronic, and they do use synths throughout a lot of this record, and of course there's definitely a lot of piano. Not as much piano, but still enough. But it's not. I don't think they fully like went whole. Like they're not. This is not indie-tronica exactly, which begs the question: do they want to do that more? Do they do that in the future more, or is this to the extent of how much they want to use synths? Because I think if they use a lot of synths, some of the percussive and the sort of tribal vocals might kind of take a backseat. I don't know. When I love when synths, you know, I obviously love Apes and Androids and a lot of the indie-tronica stuff. But I think for Small League Sing ships, their sound is so layered. They don't want to like overwhelm one part from the other. Now, like I talked about the guitar work on this is it's probably less. So in that sense, if one thing did take backseat on this album is the guitars, there is some guitar, but it's more again for texture and it's even less emphasized. I think the drums and extra percussion probably were more of the emphasis, and the vocal lines. There's just a ton of kind of tribal chanting, rhythmic vocals, jungle vocals on this. But that's kind of their MO. I mean, if you don't like those kind of vocals, then you're probably not. You're gonna have a difficult time, you know, completely being won over by the vocals, because vocals are still a big part of this. In fact, compared to some of their previous releases where they did less vocals, the vocals are still a big part of this. They're just not lead vocals. There are not too many songs that have lead vocals. It's more layered vocals, and it's London and Judd Hancock mostly trading off, as I understand it. But I mean, like the song Manzanita, that song's more stripped down. It's a little more stripped down. More, I think you just have Judd Hancock doing the vocal on that. It's more like Yellow Bird or whatever. I love the Valley O or whatever. Yeah, that one too. So. Yeah, I mean, you know, again, I have my fanboy bias, been a fan of this band. I mean, you could say in effect for about 8 years. I knew them before 2015, but it really was 2015. But, you know, and I've been so, like, hopeful and looking forward to their next record for a long time. Really, I mean, at least the last 4 years. Ever since loving Polaroid People, too. But this is definitely a case at this point, I can say, where this record definitely lived up to my hopes at this point. I mean, you know, I've heard it maybe 7 times, so I mean, we'll see in 3 months, 6 months, a year from now, if it's one I keep on going back to. If I want to listen to Small League Sing Ships, do I listen to this? Do I listen to Face Yourself and Remove Your Sandals? Do I listen to Golden Cat? I mean, I think at this point it definitely lives up. I think it's one of their most unique records, and it's one of the best records I've heard this year. Where it falls for albums of the year, we'll see. But it'd be pretty silly to state, well, it's going to be in there. No, it's right in there in the mix. We have some stuff still left to come out, but you know, I hate to try to compare albums with it. It's like, well, where is it going to fall in the album of the year? It needs to beat this. No, it's not about that. The artist doesn't write albums to have someone be their album of the year. They're just writing music because they're artists. They want to make some good music and whatever. But from a standpoint of someone like a nerd like myself who just loves, you know, the albums of the year process, like a lot of the YouTubers, a lot of the prog YouTubers, Low Tide definitely, and for this year especially, I mean, the only record that, if I know what I did with it, that I think it's going to be having to fight a little bit is this sucker, the Hotel the Laughing Tree, which, having Hotel the Laughing Tree and Small League Sing Ships sort of, you know, the biggest contenders right now is both, I love that, but I also kind of feel like I want more, because I always have the experience, I love when something comes out of nowhere. And, well, I knew the Small League Sing Ships album was going to come out at some point, I thought, because they were still an active band, even though they had sort of intermittent activity on their Instagram. You know, it's like, oh, well, what's your album of the year? Well, it's going to be from one of these bands that I've known for many years, as opposed to like a new band or something, or a band that's come back. Even though technically this was a comeback album, but no, I mean, Low Tide is terrific. Is everyone going to like it? Probably not, because if you don't like their style, their post-rock, art rock, math rock, textural sort of, you know, tribal jungle vocal style, but it does have pop elements, and it does have prog elements. It depends on whether that bugs you or not, or they can grow on you or not. But I do think, just from a standpoint of refined production, refined vocal sound of the vocals, not necessarily understanding the vocals, but just the textural, like, you know, the clarity of the vocals and sort of the vocal line, the writing of the vocal lines with their music. This is their most polished work, and yeah, I'm really happy about. I'm really thrilled for this record. I mean, I know they're a cult band. I'm one of on YouTube, one of 5 people that listen to them on YouTube that ever speak out about it, but I don't expect them to become massive. Well, the other band that I actually was reminded of, I didn't even think about that, is because they have their MATHROCK small league ships, but I never thought about that. But it reminds me a little bit of Battles. So people that like Battles probably could get into them because of Battles' sort of very non-traditional vocal approach with the mathy busy, the MATHROCK that's really busy. Because Battles are all about the drums too. A lot of their music is about the drums. I never thought about that. I would think Battles fans potentially. I specifically referenced the Mirrored record because after Mirrored I kind of jumped ship because Diana Broxton left Battles and they were having guest vocals and stuff. But yeah. So anyway, so a pretty big thumbs up for Small League Steamship's Low Tide. Please comment, like, and subscribe. Let me know what you think of it. If you hated it, I understand. But if you love it, or if you think it's sort of, there isn't much to it. Am I hyping it up? Maybe I'm the only one who's hyping it up. In 2 months, when everyone's doing their albums of the year list, is Low Tide going to be on many people's lists? I will be pretty surprised to see it more than a handful of times, but I'd love to be wrong. There's so many records that come out, and a lot of great, smaller, obscure artists that the YouTube community and the PROG community, the Discord community, that are trying to just sort of let people know about. Well, one of mine is this band, and they're one of my favorite bands, and so that's why this really means a lot to me, having this album come out, how good it is. I mean, even if it wouldn't have been this good, I still would have talked about it because I really like the band, I like them as people, and I really appreciate their music, and they speak to me and they feel like my band. If they became really big, if they became as big as Battles, would I feel like they're not my band anymore? I would hope not. That happened a little bit with like Local Natives and Warpaint, but and a few other cases. But I just want them to have success and be able to make music. I don't know. I don't know what their future holds. They're still a band. Hopefully, they're going to do a tour to support Low Tide. When I get the my vinyl copy, I'll have to show it, of course, probably sometime early next week. But I don't know. I kind of feel like the bands that are of this level of sort of very blue collar, niche, underground, cult status, very small cult status, we don't know when their last record is, so I hope this isn't their last record, but if it is, they went out on a big note for me at this point. But they're on a winning streak. Unlike even like Pepe Deluxe, which I enjoy the Phantom Canet Volume 1, but I didn't find like it grabbed me, it reached me to the same level that Queen of the Wave did. I have a feeling that Low Tide is on that same level. They're on this kind of streak. I mean, eventually they may not make a record that does, but I mean, it's like Kevin Gilbert, though. I don't know if anything that comes up Kevin Gilbert I'm going to be interested in and I'm going to want to talk about. So, but yeah, big thumbs up for Small League Sing Ships, Low Tide. Yeah, just check out, even if you just check out the song Floating. The song Floating is one of their 10 best. I mean, if that's what I might do. I've been taking in so much of their music. If I can try to, if I have time, because I'm trying to make all these other videos, do a top 10 Small League Sing Ships, I would put Floating pretty damn high. I don't know if it'd be number 1, but it's just very uplifting, and the sort of energy is so great. With a little bed of synths and stuff. I mean, that song alone. The rest of the record, I think most of the songs, you need to digest them a little bit more, and it starts to click, especially the second half. They get really busy with the drums and everything. So anyway, that's kind of diarrhea of the mouth, but thank you for watching. Thanks to the guys from Small League Sing Ships for being so receptive social media wise, and this has been a fun week, just revisiting one of my favorite bands. As much as they are a small band, a niche band, they're one of 850 bands I like. But anyway, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.